welcome back to Get Rich Slow. Today I'm going to be talking about a post that I made a couple of days ago about running experiments for free in Cloudflare. So just taking a step back, I thought it'd be worthwhile explaining what Cloudflare actually is. Thanks, Phoebe, for the unicorn. So Cloudflare is a service that sits in front of your website between the browser and your server. It hosts, in my case, it hosts my DNS details. So all of the DNS is basically the instructions on a server level to instruct the browser where to go to try and retrieve the content. So Cloudflare does a number of things. So DNS hosting, IP obfuscation, so no one from the outside world can see the real IP of my website. Content delivery network, so this enables this means that they serve some of the heavier content, so JavaScript, images, from a more local space. So if you load my website, say in the USA, they'll load a lot of the heavier content from the USA, and it does enable faster load speeds. It can also host redirect rules, so redirect from one page to another. It does monitoring, and in this case, in this specific example, it allows for edge workers. Edge workers are basically compute engines that sit on the very edge in Cloudflare, and it allows you to run scripts in the cloud before the request even makes it to your origin server. So it's really useful, and yeah, hopefully that gives you a good overview of what Cloudflare is. So yeah, basically you can run Cloudflare experiments for free if you have a website. Obviously the benefits of that would be that it's completely free. You can run experiments without any kind of risk of flicker, because everything happens on the edge using edge computing, and you have maximum flexibility in terms of what you control with your test, and it all happens before anything even loads on the browser. So it's an amazing capability, and almost better than most A/B testing tools out there. Additional requirements of this build. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you how I've built this, so it's super easy for anyone to do, and also share the code, which is completely vibe coded by myself. Probably taken me about half an hour to code, but it all works, and I'll show you that in this video. Additional requirements are to run multiple experiments at the same time, so be able to handle different assignments to different groups and randomize them all separately. Make adding experiments as easy as possible. So we're doing that through a config object or a JSON object, and then integrate into GA4 for reporting. So it's a pretty standard kind of set of integrations, but the only unique part is Cloudflare doing all of the thinking. So the logic that we're going to have to build in Cloudflare is basically to look for a cookie for the experiment if it already exists, and if it already exists, then use the assignment and show the content. If there is no cookie found, then we want to randomize the user, roll the dice, split the sets of users into different groups, A and B, and then assign the user, set the cookie for the result, so the A or the B, and then execute the relevant code. And then we also need Cloudflare to make modifications to CSS, JavaScript, or potentially do a redirect, so load another resource. So it's a quick and easy way of redirecting the page. Applications, so you could almost even redirect to a completely different application if you wanted to. Or literally anything else. And then in combination of this, we're going to need control of the server, so we're going to be able to load CSS, JavaScript, pages, whatever we want to do to make modifications. In this example, I'm using a CSS, really simple example. So there's something already in the page. I'm adding a CSS file that just says hide this element. It's just to basically demonstrate exactly how this all hangs together. So the first thing I'm going to do is head over to Cloudflare. And in Cloudflare, I'm under my site. You go to workers and pages, and you can find your worker. So you can create a worker, so you just click create. I've named mine A/B testing worker. And then from there, you'll basically edit your code or add your code in, which you can do from here. And then this is our code block again, which I'll share. So the first thing that I've done is declared an experiments object. The experiments object contains the definition of my 2 experiments. In this case, you could keep it going if you could add a new object for each experiment. So my first one is home card layout, and the second one is a banner swap test. So the banner swap test I haven't actually built yet, but as a proof of concept, it's going to work. This one is literally just controlling a couple of things in my footer. So it basically adds this CSS file if you fall into the B variation. And that CSS file just says this element, and this element being there's a payment section in the footer. I'm in B variant at the moment. I could show you if I change the cookie myself manually, my experiments cookie, put test1 to A, and reload the page, then the payment section shows. Right, so it's all working correctly. But that config, going back to the config, so the config allows you to define experiments, define the split, which the customers would be assigned at, and then the path of the file to load. Now this could be a CSS file, it could be a JavaScript file, and then in the alternate version, I've also added an anchor. So what the anchor allows you to do is target a specific image and replace that image with another image. This is really almost identical to the way SiteSpect works. If you guys are familiar with SiteSpect, I know it's quite a rare tool, not a lot of people use it, but because it works at a network layer, basically it can swap out files from the request to the response. So if you request image 1, and then in this case Cloudflare is swapping it for image 2 or image B, and it allows you to swap out images on the fly. And then the rest of the code basically deals with cookie lookups, and assigning new cookies if they don't exist, and removing old cookies that aren't required anymore if you remove them from that definition object. Injecting CSS into the head. Return untouched response with cookie. So this is just setting the cookie. And then some utilities that are loaded as well. Like I say, all vibe coded, so it's all done by ChatGPT. But it all works. And then in Google Tag Manager, basically I've set up a data element that reads the cookie, and the cookie then gets added into Google Analytics into a event level variable, and that can then be used in reporting. So we've got a variable called experiments, and it looks at a first party cookie called experiments. that's what the Cloudflare worker is sending in response. It's the experiments cookie. Now the experiments cookie is a string of test IDs and variants that have been assigned. So I've got two tests running. T1 is test 1, T2 is test 2, and I'm in A of both. And then, so if I delete this, reload the page, I'm in BB again. I'm going to delete that. I can't remember if it was in AA or BB, I can't remember. And now I'm in BB again. Just delete that. Now I'm in BA, right. So it is working, it is randomizing effectively. And in this case, yeah, you don't see the payment block because I'm in the B variant. So I'm doing it the other way around. Normally do like the B showing and the A not showing, but yeah, it doesn't make any difference. And then Google Tag Manager basically grabs that cookie and in GA tag, which is the config tag, server-side config, I'm just setting an event parameter of experiments as experiments, and that tab separated list, pipe separated list, goes in and represents the experiments that that user is assigned to, and then you can report on it. So this is completely extensible. You can add as many experiments as you want. It does all the assignments at once, and then looks up all the files that need to be looked up. So that's pretty much how it all works. In terms of analytics, the last thing I was going to show you is the fact that when I load the page, we get the reporting going through to GA, saying which variant I'm in. So you can see that in the experiments variable set there. You could, there's obviously alternatives to set the variable name as the experiment and then just send like many different variant IDs through. But I think this obviously means that you might be limited by the number of tests, or you've got to set up a new variable every time. This is literally just the same variable. If I ended this test, it would disappear. If I kept this test and added a new one, the new one would appear. Just from the config file. So basically all you've got to add now through this system is maintaining that config object in the worker file, this experiments object. If you just add a new one, it will just start reporting, it will start running immediately if it's just a file switch. So it's super simple to maintain this on an ongoing basis, and it's completely free. So if you liked this video, please do like, subscribe and follow this channel. There's going to be loads more stuff that I'm going to be uploading. Nice one. Have a good day.